Have you ever heard of Alice in Wonderland? Maybe through Lewis Carroll's original novel, Disney's iconic animated film, or even the dark and twisted version by American McGee. But what if I told you there's a version just as disturbing as Alice Madness Returns? What we're diving into is a psychological reinterpretation that blends horror, madness, and a deeply unsettling distortion of reality itself. Today, I'm bringing back Alice in Dreams, an analog horror series created by XP Goat. This story introduces us to a very different kind of Alice, one whose view of the world doesn't stem from a wild imagination, but from a deeply fractured mind shaped by a mental disorder that pushes her further and further away from reality. As some of you may remember, this was one of the very first analog horror series I ever covered on the channel, but that video is pretty old now, so I've decided to revisit the entire story from the beginning, this time including the latest episode, Alice in Dreams, The White Rabbit. Before we dive in, I want to take a moment to thank everyone who responded to the pinned comment in the last video and for the incredible support you always give me. Remember, if you'd like to be featured in the next video, make sure to reply to the pinned comment where you'll find this question. What fate do you think awaits Alice? Without further ado, don't forget to drop your precious like and subscribe to help the channel grow and reach more people. Every like is one more coin to escape poverty. And if you're not sure what to comment, just type meow in the comment section and I'll leave you a heart in return. Comments are incredibly important and help the video a lot, so don't forget to leave yours. Welcome to Alice in Dreams. It all begins in a familiar way. Alice stands before a rabbit hole in the middle of the woods, peering curiously inside before falling into it, thus beginning her descent into Wonderland. But from the very start, something feels off. As she lands, Alice is wearing a disturbing rabbit mask. The setting is just as bizarre. A padded tunnel adorned with rabbit paintings, and at the far end, a door shaped like a mouth. Suddenly, a white rabbit appears and bolts toward the door. Alice removes her mask and, after hesitating for a moment, decides to follow it. That's when the narrative takes a brutal turn. We're shown a brief, grotesque depiction of a surgical procedure, a lobotomy. For those who may not know, lobotomy was a real medical procedure used throughout the 20th century to treat severe mental disorders like schizophrenia, major depression, or bipolar disorder. It involved severing the connections between the frontal lobes and the rest of the brain under the belief that this could calm patients, altering their behavior and emotions. But the reality was very different. The procedure was first developed by Portuguese neurosurgeon Antonio Egas Moniz, but it was American doctor Walter Freeman who popularized it in the US, using a tool eerily similar to an ice pick, inserted through the eye sockets to destroy the neural connections in the frontal lobe. While a few patients seemed to show signs of improvement, the majority were left with devastating after effects: loss of personality, cognitive decline, extreme apathy. Some became emotionally numb, while others suffered severe side effects like seizures, drastic mood swings, or the inability to plan or make decisions. It was a steep price for a so-called cure that, in truth, simply silenced people, turning them into hollow shells of who they once were. After this, the scene cuts to a close-up of Alice's face, subtly hinting that she too has undergone this procedure. Behind the strange door lies what looks like a theatrical performance, harmless at first glance, but the mood shifts drastically as a heavy silence falls over the place and everyone begins to stare directly at Alice. The scene shifts again, this time showing a cracked face while phrases flash across the screen.
I am not falling into a void. Why do I have to swallow these pills? I am not crazy.
It's clear that Alice is in denial about her mental state, even as her mind is crumbling. Suddenly, the Cheshire Cat appears, but not the way we know him. This version is grotesque, twisted, and unnatural, perfectly reflecting how damaged her psyche has become. We also catch a glimpse of the caterpillar, although it doesn't play much of a role here. But the truly disturbing part comes next. Alice's face begins to peel away, as if her very identity is falling apart, fading piece by piece. This moment is symbolic of her inner state. She's losing herself. She's broken. Her core is rotting from within. She's decomposing mentally and emotionally. Finally, we see the Red Queen standing alone in absolute darkness. She gives a haunting smile. And then the truth is revealed. Alice is confined inside a psychiatric hospital. Everything we've seen up until now appears to be hallucinations, symptoms commonly associated with schizophrenia, visual delusions, auditory voices, distorted scenarios, disconnection from reality, and those piercing stares that exist only in the mind of the person experiencing them. It's also clear that Alice Madness Returns had a strong influence on the tone and aesthetics of this series, from the twisted visuals to the psychological focus on trauma and identity. If you've never played the Alice games, I highly recommend you check them out. And please, if you or someone close to you is experiencing any of these symptoms, don't hesitate to seek help. The second video begins with what appears to be a recording of the exact moment Alice underwent her lobotomy, followed by a look at her medical report. Name: Alice Liddell. Age: 18 years old. Condition: schizophrenia. The patient also experiences bouts of violence and dissociation from reality. Lobotomy accepted. The lobotomy seems to have had positive results for Ms. Liddell. Alice Liddell is fit to live with society. Her mental state improved after post-lobotomy treatment. A white rabbit came for her. This confirms that Alice has been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and according to the report, the lobotomy is yielding good results. She's showing signs of improvement, enough to allow her reintegration into society. However, there's one line that immediately stands out. A white rabbit came for her. This could be interpreted as a symbolic way of referencing Alice's schizophrenic experiences, where she hallucinated with a white rabbit leading her into Wonderland. In this context, the rabbit could represent a path to a better life. The use of this kind of language in a medical report suggests a more humanized understanding of her case, rather than a strictly clinical approach. And honestly, who wouldn't want to believe that? To believe this story has a happy ending. That maybe, just maybe, Alice finally found peace and a chance at a normal life. But let's be realistic. Given the nature of this story, that hopeful interpretation likely isn't true. Most probably, this report is nothing more than yet another hallucination, one more fabrication of Alice's fractured mind. We return once more to her distorted inner world, this time in The Looking Glass, a clear reference to the original story's sequel. Alice is now in a large, empty room, with two portraits of the real Alice Liddell and a massive mirror. As she approaches, a demonic figure appears, perhaps a manifestation of her inner demons, and what seems to be a psychotic episode, or even a visual representation of her identity disorder. Then she wakes up. Same room, though with a few subtle changes. As she gets up, she finds a potion labeled "Drink Me," and without hesitation, downs it. As a result, she begins to shrink. Suddenly, we're back in the real world. Alice is still institutionalized. Bit by bit, her face fades away. Yet another haunting reminder that her sense of self is slipping away by the hour. Back in her mind, she encounters a disturbing chess pawn who tells her she's being consumed by her illness, the lobotomy, or perhaps both. Alice looks concerned, but she keeps going. Eventually, she enters a vibrantly colored house, where she meets two deeply unsettling conjoined twins, clearly inspired by Clara and Mia from Fran Bow. We then see them controlling a puppet version of themselves until it's split in half. Right after that, we're shown a brain, also sliced in two, accompanied by a phrase that strongly suggests the lobotomy did not help Alice at all. On the contrary, it seems her condition is deteriorating from both sides, the schizophrenia and the side effects of the procedure. This all but confirms that there's no happy ending, that the medical report we saw earlier was indeed just another delusion. Suddenly, the setting changes again, and Humpty Dumpty appears. He says,
"Few are the warriors who remain standing after a battle. You're clinging to something intangible. Will you be able to build the wall? Only then will you be invincible. Destroy the demon and you'll find freedom. But be careful with what you're about to face."
This suggests she must confront her inner demon to end this nightmare. Could there still be hope for her? As the story reaches its climax, Alice arrives at a castle. There, the White Queen awaits. Soon after, Alice finds another mirror, this time reflecting both her Wonderland self and her real-world self inside the asylum. What we see here is particularly fascinating. Throughout the series, Alice's hair color keeps shifting, from blonde to black and from black to blonde. This might signify different levels of lucidity. The blonder she is, the more disconnected she is from reality. Suddenly, Alice's reflection in the mirror vanishes, wiped away by the same tool used in her lobotomy. But in her dreamlike reality, she discovers a sword named Vorpal Memory. She grabs it, her clothes shift dramatically, and she prepares to descend a staircase leading into the deepest part of her subconscious, determined to end this once and for all. The question is, will she make it?
Alice went down into the darkest place of her mind, the basement of the subconscious.
Who am I?
There's a lot to unpack here. In the end, we see Alice become the queen of her own mind after defeating her inner demon. This could be a symbolic reflection of how the real Alice might have overcome her struggles, improved her mental state, and found freedom. Or maybe not. The ending raises more questions than answers. On one hand, we have the medical report, which, as we've said, seems to be just another product of Alice's imagination. So it's safe to say things didn't actually end like that. On the other hand, in the basement of her subconscious, we see Alice's bed, empty. And if we consider that alongside the final scene, we might interpret this as her finally finding herself, finally escaping the hospital. But then there's that unsettling moment, Alice falling once again down the rabbit hole, screaming. Maybe she never escaped. Maybe it was all in her head. Again. Everything you've just heard was my final reflection in the previous analysis of this series, but now, there's a new episode, and with it, all of those questions, they finally get an answer. The latest available episode is titled Alice in Dreams, The White Rabbit, and unlike the others, its description gives us a particularly intriguing message.
The parasite has its claws in your mind, twisting your memories, warping Wonderland.
This phrase is fairly easy to interpret. The parasite likely refers either to her illness or to the damaged mental state resulting from the lobotomy. As we've seen throughout the series, her psyche is in rapid decline, so much so that even her imagined world, Wonderland, is falling apart. The episode begins with a young Alice in her bedroom, accompanied by her cat. Suddenly, she catches a glimpse of a shadow moving in the corner of her eye. Standing in the hallway is a strange white rabbit, which immediately darts through a red door, eerily reminiscent of the first episode. This moment suggests that Alice may have been struggling with mental illness from a very young age. Curious, the little Alice decides to follow the rabbit. However, the room beyond the red door has completely changed, deteriorated, dimly lit, and overgrown with vegetation. At the far end, beneath a portrait of Lewis Carroll, lies a rabbit hole. Alice approaches it, peering into the darkness, where she can just barely make out the same white rabbit. Before she can react, she's attacked, and the scene abruptly cuts, revealing it was all a dream. Alice is actually locked inside a padded cell at the psychiatric hospital. But if you go back just a few frames, in the blink of an eye, there's a distorted image and a single word flashes across the screen: corruption. This is a clear reference to everything Alice is going through, and it might even be a direct reference to the very first cutscene in Alice Madness Returns.
Delusion. Corruption. It's killing me. Wonderland is destroyed. My mind is in ruins.
The white rabbit reappears and warns her that time is running out, that sanity doesn't last long in a place like this, and if she wants to find the parasite, she'll have to descend into Wonderland once again. He tells her that she's not broken, but I can't help thinking this is just Alice trying to convince herself she's still okay, just like before. The truth is, the damage is already done. There's no going back. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet shatters, and she falls, once again transported to Wonderland. But this isn't the Wonderland she once knew. Now it's decayed, dark, broken, a reflection of Alice herself, who is clearly falling deeper and deeper into ruin. She walks through the mouth-shaped door once more, entering the same theatrical scene from the first episode. But this time, all the color and joy is gone. That's when her subconscious, the deepest part of her, begins to speak.
They hurt me. I don't know what I'm doing here. My breathing feels wrong. My mind is breaking me apart. They're not with me anymore.
There's only the sound of mutilation now.
There's a surprise waiting for you, Alice.
After this disturbing moment, the episode transitions into an updated medical report on Alice, written by Dr. Cartwright, dated 1 year after the previous one.
Name, Alice Liddell. Age, 19. Condition, schizophrenia, under review. Miss Liddell had been placed in solitary confinement within a padded cell following a series of acute schizophrenic episodes. She managed to escape the psychiatric facility and was later found at the bottom of a hollow cavity in the earth, bearing multiple minor injuries and superficial lacerations. She was immediately returned to her room for observation. Miss Liddell was selected for a frontal lobotomy 1 month ago. Following the operation, the patient entered a vegetative state that lasted exactly 30 days. Upon the conclusion of this period, her motor functions gradually returned and her condition stabilized significantly. However, after conducting further examinations, I have observed behaviors inconsistent with the original diagnosis. In fact, these behaviors suggest the opposite. Miss Liddell appears to possess a stable and coherent mental state. The lobotomy, which typically impairs cognitive and motor functions due to its direct impact on the frontal lobe, did not produce the expected deterioration seen in similar cases. The absence of memory loss, tremors, or erratic movement is both remarkable and clinically perplexing. At present, the patient remains calm and responsive. Dr. Cartwright, Senior Psychiatric Officer, Ravenscroft Institution, April 4th, 1875.
This medical report may answer the questions raised back in episode 2, but at the same time, it creates even more uncertainty. Despite everything we've witnessed, the doctor claims that Alice is stable, but that just doesn't add up. We know she isn't, so could this be yet another hallucination? Another delusion? Honestly, it doesn't feel like one. But then, why would they lie about her diagnosis? Could they be hiding something? Unfortunately, we don't have that answer. What we do know is this: Alice hasn't taken control of her mind. In fact, she's further from it than ever. And as I mentioned, with every passing hour, she continues to sink deeper and deeper into the absolute darkness. Alright, that's all for today. Honestly, I really liked diving back into this series, and I hope you enjoyed the analysis as much as I did. That said, leave your thoughts in the comments. I always love reading what you have to say. If you want more videos like this, don't forget to support this one as much as possible and share it with as many people as you can. Also, make sure to follow me on my other social media platforms, where I upload exclusive short-form content you won't find on YouTube. And most importantly, a huge shout out to the channel members. Seriously, thank you so much. If you'd like to become a member, just click the join button next to the subscribe button to access tons of perks and exclusive emojis while supporting me. If you're interested, go for it. I'd be forever grateful. Remember, this video was made by a cat, and cats can't talk. Thanks for watching, take care, and see you soon.